Shana Tova, everyone. Gemar Chatima Tova. So wonderful to be with you another year. So there's a short version of this sermon that I was thinking I could probably do in 2 minutes. And I'm reminded of that story about the rabbi who gave the long sermon on Yom Kippur, and there was a reporter from NBC in the crowd. He says, "Oh, Rabbi, what a wonderful sermon. We'd love to put it on our broadcast, but we only have a 2-minute segment. Can you do the same sermon in 2 minutes?" We said, "Yeah, sure, of course." And the reporter says, "Well, why didn't you?" I don't think this is my longest sermon, but I'm also not going to do it in 2 minutes. It's Yom Kippur. I want to make sure you get your money's worth. Years ago, I was fortunate enough to be able to spend over a week in Ireland. Ireland was always a place I was interested in visiting, and also because my mother is called Pat, because she was born on St. Patrick's Day. I realize not a Jewish holiday, but something about Ireland and Irish culture has been endearing to me. And Ireland has something both tragic and beautiful about it. It has tremendous beauty and greenery, but it also has a history of pain and tragedy. But speaking as a Jew, the wonderful thing about Irish history, looking back over the centuries, is that it basically has nothing to do with the Jews. We didn't suffer there, we weren't expelled from there, and there's something freeing, liberating about not going to a place where I have to enter into any of that. It's true, there's a Jewish-Irish museum in Dublin where they happily give you a green yarmulke, but it's all rather benign. And while I was there, I learned a lot about Ireland as a country that my Jewish history courses didn't touch. In particular, I learned about the great national poet of Ireland, William Butler Yeats, who grew up in a truly tragic land and time. And he summarized something very Yom Kippur, indeed something very Yizkor, which we do on Yom Kippur, of course. He writes, "But is there any comfort to be found? Man is in love, and love is what vanishes. What more is there to say?" In other words, we love, and what we love vanishes. And that not only captures the individual experience, but also all of Jewish experience, and even humanity's experience of loss. With that in mind, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, the great 20th century theologian and scholar, asks a very deep question regarding our collective Jewish experience and how we coalesced as a people. He basically asks, what is the definitive historical identity and character of Jews as a people? And he says it's like there's not one, but 2 times when God makes the Israelites a people. One is at the end of Genesis, when we go down to Egypt together, and one is in Exodus, when we come up out from Egypt together. So the Rav Soloveitchik asks, which one is it? Did we become the Jewish people when we went down into Egypt, or is it when we came up out of Egypt? And his answer, as you might guess, is both. Because he says there are 2 different covenants that tie the Jewish people to God. The first is a covenant of fate, and that covenant enunciates Yeats' point. Our people are forged in a covenant of suffering and a covenant of pain. It's the covenant that ties us together for all the terrible and horrifying things that happened in our history. Come November, we'll mark the 86th anniversary of Kristallnacht, which was the beginning of the end of European Jewry. And when it came to Kristallnacht, let me tell you, it didn't matter what your political views were. It didn't matter how important or rich you were, how many accomplishments you had. It didn't matter how many medals you wore on your chest. If you had a Jewish parent, a Jewish grandparent, you were bound by this Jewish covenant of fate, this inescapable pain that engulfed our people that still echoes to this day. Today is also the 51st anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, where our people were attacked and humiliated on our most sacred occasion by surrounding Arab countries. In other words, the experience of collective suffering and pain in which we were birthed reverberates as a part of our covenant. It's a mark of our people. And the pain of that covenant of fate is inescapable. It's part of living in a world in which people would destroy you if just given the chance. In fact, on Yom Kippur, on all days, on this holy of all holy days, we will conduct a martyrology called Ele Ezkara, recognizing our collective loss, remembering those whose lives were taken simply because they were Jews. Revered teachers like Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael, the rape, slaughter, and ethnic cleansing done to dozens of Jewish villages as Christian crusaders marched through Europe on their way to Jerusalem. The expulsions from England, France, Poland, century after century, the Spanish Inquisition and expulsion in 1492, the pogroms of the Russian Empire, the Holocaust, where nearly half of the Jewish people in the world were systematically extinguished. And now, the savage barbarism of October 7th, 2023 is added to the list. And that memory will return again on Simchat Torah, the Hebrew anniversary. And so, says Soloveitchik, every Jew knows in their bones that we share a covenant of fate, that we are in love, and love is what vanishes, and what more is there to say? But, he says, that's not the only covenant, because we come out of Egypt, and coming out of Egypt is a covenant of faith. There's a covenant of fate and a covenant of faith. See, Israel couldn't help being slaves in Egypt, but once they left Egypt, they had a choice. It was a choice as to what to do next. It was a choice to accept the Torah. It was a choice to return to the land of Israel and create a new home. And that is the covenant of faith. Jews in Eastern Europe may not have been able to save themselves from the covenant of fate, but we did not have to again return and rebuild the land of Israel against all odds. That was a choice, the covenant of faith. And for me, as I look at the state of the world today and the chaos, corruption, injustice, it just seems like human beings, as wise as we can be, keep pushing ourselves to the boundaries of potential self-destruction in one way or another. There's nuclear war, or perhaps the climate, and now AI, which if it gets out of our control, only God knows what that'll take us. And so for me, that covenant of fate and of faith doesn't apply to the Jewish people alone. It really applies to all humanity. We really are all in this together as one. Because in these days, as the world is now more and more connected, there is shared suffering. There's a covenant of fate. There are forces greater than any individual, larger than any one group or political party in this world. And we all know that the end game has to be for all of us to come together to collaborate on solving shared problems, on defeating common enemies. In other words, how we come out of it, what we choose for the next generation's experience in the world, who we choose to be our leaders, and how we choose to be led, that's a covenant of faith. And we must not forget our own agency in our covenant of faith. We do have a choice in this. The Torah says, "See, I set before you today life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life." When do you get that choice? Today. Today and each and every day after today. You, me, we are choosing. Of course, these covenants not only exist on the macro levels of Jewish people or the globe, but also on a personal level. Each marriage, for example, embraces both covenants. Anybody who's married or has ever been married knows that there's a covenant of fate. There are things you endure together, the pains you share, the difficulties, and sometimes the tragedies. But if that is all a marriage has, then it is no marriage at all. There must also be a covenant of faith, the possibilities in the future, the shared dreams and hope of things you will still do that are not yet done. And on Yom Kippur, all of it comes to a head on this day during Yizkor, the martyrology, because Yizkor and the martyrology themselves are the covenant of fate. They mark the people who we lost, those whom we loved, and the collective tragedies that we share. And we mourn because there is nothing more incomprehensible and counterintuitive to the human soul than to murder legions of a peaceful people just because they're different. And we mourn with an inexpressible sense of pain because there is nothing more unfathomable to the human mind than someone who was here yesterday is gone today. That a living, breathing, loving human being has vanished from our view. But it may surprise you to know that Yom Kippur is also a covenant of faith. First of all, according to the Mishnah, you should know that marriages were arranged on Yom Kippur. Young men and women would go out to the fields and find each other on the afternoon of Yom Kippur. And just as an aside, this is a tradition that I'd like to resurrect here in the halls of Kol Shofar. Wouldn't that be great? You want to meet someone? All you have to do is come to shul. Just walk the halls. People are doing it anyway. They're roaming the halls. Might as well make use of it. Get to business. Help people find each other. So that makes Yom Kippur a covenant of faith. Let me read you something that could easily have been added to our list of Yizkor poems. It's a beautiful passage from the great French poet Paul Valéry, from his eulogy for his predecessor Anatole France as the head of the Academy of Letters. He said, listen to this, "The dead have only the living as a resource. Our thoughts are for them the only paths of the day. They who have taught us so much, they who seem to have effaced themselves for us, and to have abandoned all their chances to us. It is just and worthy of us that they be piously welcomed into our memories and that they drink life through our words." See, that's taking a covenant of fate, the pain of loss, and transforming it into a covenant of faith, into new hope for the future. The pain that you share when you transform it into life and into possibilities, then it becomes new life, a life of the future, not only of the past. And so we have this practical issue regarding all this that is especially present after this past year, because there are two ways to educate a Jewish child into Judaism. There's the way of pain and the way of possibility. You may know the story of the two brothers who go to Hebrew school together. One day, one of them is sick at home, but the other one attends. When the one who went to Hebrew school comes home, the sick brother says, "So, what did I miss in Hebrew school? Which country did we get kicked out of today?" Because that was, for a while, a common curriculum. It was all covenant of fate. It was all tragedies, the challenges of our people, and they're real. It's one of our covenants. But we are also a gifted and creative and optimistic people in the face of all the tragedies and all the trials. So we have to remember not only to teach our children one covenant, but both of them. Not only did we go down into Egypt, but we also came up out of it. Not only did we endure the horrific experience of the Holocaust, but we've created a flourishing Jewish community, not only in Israel, but here too, and in much of the world. I mentioned the poet Yeats earlier, who wrote, "Man is in love and loves what vanishes." But he also wrote a lot of love poems. In one of them, he says to his beloved that he would want to embroider her a cloth of gold and jewels and colors to spread under her feet upon which to walk. But he can't embroider. He's just a poet. So he writes, "But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams." As a Jewish people, we all share dreams together, all of our people. Even though we are individuals, each one of us, all together as a people, are implicated in each other's dreams. So when we move in this world, when we make decisions, when we realize possibilities, when we choose, we have to tread softly because we tread on all our dreams. Soloveitchik was obviously not talking about individual covenants, but covenants we share with our people. In other words, our dreams are not just ours, but all of ours. Last point. In the Torah, Joseph is sold into slavery. He's sold into slavery because he's told his brothers his dreams, where they all bow down to him, and they don't take too kindly to that. So they get rid of him and push him away. And many, many years later, he becomes the viceroy of Egypt. How does he become the viceroy of Egypt? Well, just as he fell because of his dreams, he also rises because of his dreams. When he's in prison, he interprets the dreams of the baker and the cupbearer. And the cupbearer, who's released from prison, reports it to Pharaoh. And then Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dreams. And he becomes the viceroy of Egypt. And what is it that allows Joseph to fall? And what is it that allows him to rise? Joseph fell into slavery only when he listened to his own dreams. But when he learned to listen to the dreams of others, he rose. So all of us are implicated in the covenant of faith. It's what we hope for our Kol Shofar congregation, for our greater community, for our country, for Eretz Yisrael, the land and the state of Israel, for all the whole world, that we will not only remember the sufferings of the past, we will not only recall those we have lost, that we will not be bound by our powerful covenant of fate alone, but that we will still dream together. We have to still dream that we will realize possibilities gifted to us from the genius and richness of our people who came before us. That we will know that if we truly love, then love does not ultimately vanish, and that there is comfort to be found. And that we will have faith in the God with whom we have this covenant is eternal, and that this God, whom together with us loves and embraces and grants us the ability to dream. May we, in the year ahead, never stop dreaming. May we dream wonderful dreams, and may we realize at least some of them together. Shana Tova, Gmar Chatima Tova.